Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Everybody with your heart. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, a little louder. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisance all Guru Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 2, verses 99 and 100. Chapter is entitled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The class will be given by His Grace Prakshit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we will go straight into the class. Hari Bol.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Shri Bihari, Radha Shri Bihari, Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha, Shamasundati Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gura Nitai Gura Nitai Gura Nitai Jaya Gura Nitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gurarivo Harivo Harivo Nitai Gora Harivo Nitai Gora Harivo Haribo, Haribo, Nitai, Gura Haribo. Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramhamsa Privajikacharya, Astotara Satasishimada's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramhamsa Privajikacharya, Astotara Satasishimada's Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Its compound Acharya Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidvaita Gadadha Shivachari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddharthani. Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Nityananda. Narayana Namaskritya Narointe Vam Narotamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tatujayam Vidiret. Nasta Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees, except on all obeisances. All glories to you. Prabhupada. Reading this morning from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 2, and the proper mantras for invoking auspiciousness, blessings, dealing with Chaitanya Charitamrita has to be done now by me. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vinda. So Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 2, text 99. Keshara Swarup Krishna Swayam Avatari Kridakari Ichaya Rupe Vishwa Vari Keshara Swarupa Krishna Swayam Avatari Kridakari Ichaya Rupe Vishwa Vari Keshara Swarup Krishna Swayam Avatari Kridakari Ichaya Rupe Vishwavari. Hare Krishna. If you'd like to chant, please do so now.
Kishora Swarupa Krishna Swayam Avatari Kridha Kare Echaya Rupa Vishwabhari. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
किशोर स्वरूप कृष्ण स्वयं अवतारी क्रीड़ा करे है छय रूपे विश्व भारी. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, we'll do the word for word. Kishore Swarup, whose real nature is that of an adolescent. Krishna, Lord Krishna, Swayam, himself. Avatari, the source of all incarnation. Vedakare, he plays. These. Chaya Rupe, in 6 forms. Vishwa, the universes. Bhari, maintaining. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is eternally an adolescent, is the primeval Lord, the source of all incarnations. He expands himself in these 6 categories of forms to establish his supremacy throughout the universe. Okay. Let's go to 100 also. Text 100. Okay. Echaya rupe hayanante vivida. Anante rupe ek rupe nahi kichu veda. Word for word translation. These. Chaya rupe in 6 forms. Haya, there are. Ananta, unlimited. Vivida, varieties. Ananta rupe in unlimited forms. Ek rupa, 1 form. Nahi, there is not. Kichu, any. Veda, difference. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In these 6 kinds of forms, there are innumerable varieties. Although there are many, they are all one. There is no difference between them. Purport. Hare Krishna. The personality of Godhead manifests himself in 6 different features. 1, Prabhava. 2, Vaibhava. 3, empowered incarnations. 4, partial incarnations. 5, childhood. And 6, boyhood. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, whose prominent feature is adolescence, enjoys his transcendental proclivities by performing pastimes in these 6 forms. In these 6 features, there are unlimited divisions of the personality of Godhead's forms. The jivas or living beings are differentiated parts and parcels of the Lord. They are all diversities of one without a second. Hare Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oma Ginati Virandasya Gyana Ganashalakaya. Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sha. Sri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitam Cha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Rakhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Panamani Hari Priya Vanchakapatru Vescha Kripa Sindhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashtaya, Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirveshesha Sunyavadi Pastityadi Sitani. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaurachase Namaha. Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahaya Himabhya Divecha Vishandaraya. Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So let's do now the English translation of text 99 and text 100. So text 99. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is eternally an adolescent, is the primeval Lord, the source of all incarnations. He expands himself in these 6 categories of forms to establish his supremacy throughout the universe. Text 100, English translation. In these 6 kinds of forms, there are innumerable varieties. Although there are many, they are all one. There is no difference between them. Hare Krishna. So this is a very important explanation. The Lord, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is explaining. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead came as a devotee to show us how to live this spiritual life in the material world. That was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he came with his entourage, his plenary expansion, Balaram, now as Nityananda Prabhu, the original Guru. Then there is Srivas, is Gadadhar. So we say the prayer Panchatattva, Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, Gadadhar Prabhu, and Srivas Prabhu. So already there are 5 personalities, but they're all expansions in different ways, which we will, by the Lord's mercy and Guru's guidance, will get into some, to some extent. It can be quite, as the Lord says, many, the Lord Chaitanya himself is saying, many incarnations are there. And for what he wants to do, he does a particular, or comes out in a particular incarnation. And the Lord is unlimited, so sometimes wrapping one's mind around these could be quite challenging. But through the Lord's mercy, we'll see how this would be presented. So you already know one thing from text 99. His Holiness Bhakti Swami giving a lecture, actually a retreat, and he was talking, this was in 2019, talking about the way Lord Brahma described the spiritual world and what was going on. And so, of course, to describe the spiritual world, you have to describe Krishna himself too, because that's where he is, in Golok Vrindavan, his abode. And the point that he made is also what's been said here in the translation. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is eternally an adolescent, who is eternally an adolescent. All right, so let's look at that. We know adolescent is when we are in our teens. Particularly, it is said that the Lord looks like a 16-year-old. That's what he prefers to be. Even wrapping our minds around that, and we already know, we only know about the material world at this point, that's what we remember. So a 16-year-old has practically all the energy that a person can have. He's not like a little kid, 10-year-old, 8-year-old. Now we're talking about the material level now, because that's what we have our experience. So they may be able to move around, run around a lot. And 4-year-olds, as soon as they're able to walk and maintain a good balance, they can run, jump, so on. But they don't have much energy. For their little bodies, they can do that with it. But then when a person goes into teenage years, that is the time that they've bloomed to as good a shape as they're going to be. And Krishna prefers to be there. And by the way, those that you relate to, the gopis, they are also right around 14 years of age. So they're all like that. Now, back to Truth Swami was explaining that, of course, we know about the Lord coming to Vrindavan or Gokul as a baby. And he had childhood pastimes, which were now in the Kartik time. Kartik is a month long, and it's actually a name of a month too. We'll talk about that later. It's not just the time itself, but there are names for different months. And they also connect to the incarnations of Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll deal with all of that later on. So the Personality of Godhead comes as a child, and then through his own supreme will, he grows. But don't look at it, that growth, as expansion of a material body or growth of a material body, because everything that the Lord does is divine or spiritual. A person who understands that the Lord's birth and activities are all at the transcendental level, that person is liberated, which means they don't see Krishna or any source of Krishna as an incarnation or expansion as material. And they accept in their heart of hearts that everything that Krishna does is transcendental. Even if it looks like, by his own sweet will, he's doing things and speaking just like a human being. His body is not like our physical bodies. It's very, very, very different and transcendental. As Lord Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Adi Govinda, Savakarana Karanam. Ishvara Parama Krishna. So there are different incarnations, but Krishna is the sum total. Krishna is the original. He's the cause of all causes, including things that happen in different planets, in different universes, the material world, the things that happen in the spiritual world, and his own expansions. He is the cause of all causes. From a cause, something happens, and that something is called the effect. Cause, then effect. But the ultimate cause of all things is Krishna himself. If we take the material world as an example, because that's what we used to. Right now, what we used to is what's here, and here in the material world. Anything that happens, there is something behind how it happened. We all know at this point that whatever is being produced and sold in this material world comes from material nature. Whatever you may have in your hand or use or sit in or drive, or all of those, they came from material nature. If nature did not have the materials in it, we or whoever produces all kinds of things, including buildings, you name it, streets, they couldn't do any of it. So they take the starting materials from the material nature and then fashion it using the energy supplied by material nature. So earth, water, fire, air, and then the space in which we work, Skorita, they are all provided. And so with that, then scientists or engineers or artists, and you name it, or different professions, they can come up with all kinds of little creations And sometimes through that, get other things to work. And what we're talking about is the scientists may take, say, iron, which is from the earth. You take it into an ore, and the ore format is it's combined with other materials. Use the energy of the earth, which means heat, from fire to, and then other chemicals as needed, and sometimes air as needed, oxygen of the air especially. They burn things, they do through all kinds of chemical changes, and then they isolate the iron. And now, in the hot form, again, which is from fire, which is part of what's provided here by the Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu, they're able to turn it into a particular shape. So now, from the material energy, we have had a sort of situation now that we're able to produce a particular product. We call that a machine. What does a machine do? The machine can also perform other tasks, get other things done, other products put together. Now, so from the material nature, some things have been used, substances supplied by the material nature to fashion a particular machine, which does a particular job. And from that, sometimes you produce other things which would use for other situations, other jobs, other activities that we want to perform. In the same, in a kind of a similar way, because the Lord is far more intricate than this description, even though that's the closest we could come to. The Lord expands in different forms for particular purposes. Now, the difference though here is that the expansion of the Lord, he doesn't lose his abilities in any way. There's my body people that think that, oh, the Lord, when he expands, then the original becomes less. Just like, if you have a number and you subtract a smaller number from it, then what's left is smaller than what you started with. Like what you have 20 and you subtract 5, then you get 15. So if the Lord was 20 and then you subtracted 5, because it's expanded to something with the 5, then what's left of the original is 15. Lord Krishna is not like that. Srila Prabhupada describes that if you have 1 and you subtract 1 from it, in the case of Krishna, in the expansion of it, you still get 1. If an expansion merges into Krishna, which is actually happening in different pastimes described by the Garga Samhita, we have time, we may go into that too. If an expansion merges into Krishna, 1 plus another 1, you still get 1. Krishna doesn't become more or less. Krishna doesn't become more by addition or less by subtraction. It's like, I see Papa give another example, like the ocean. You can take buckets and buckets and buckets of water from the ocean, but to your eyes, the ocean doesn't appear to be less. And if you pour more and more and more water into it, the ocean doesn't overflow its banks. So that's the closest, these examples are closest to what Krishna is like. He's the original. His body is Satchidananda. His body is full of knowledge. It's eternal. As he said here, the body, Krishna, is eternally an adolescent. That is by his own free will. He wants to remain that way. In different past times, of course, sometimes it takes on the look of a younger age or even older age. There's past times where he looks like an old man. Talked about that not too long ago in a housewarming party. So, or program. So the Lord, when he comes to the earth or wherever universe that he comes, he arrives at, appears at, He grows up to that age, and then he stays there. That age of 16. By his own will, he prefers to be like that. So it doesn't matter how long he stays in a particular place in the material world, he would look young. Mm? And that's the explanation here, who is eternally adolescent. He is a primeval Lord and the source of all incarnations. Now, so in this text in 99 describes that he expands himself in these 6 categories of forms to establish his supremacy throughout the universe. Now, in the next text, 100, it says that these 6 kinds of forms, there are innumerable varieties. And although there are many, they are all one. There is no difference between them. So let's talk a little bit about the ones that we've heard a lot about, and that is like an expansion of Balaram. And then we'll talk about the Chakravyuha, but let's jump straight to the Super Soul, because we know the Super Soul is in these physical bodies that we have, actually with the subtle body. Subtle body carries the soul, we are the soul, to the next existence based on the person's activities in this life. But the Super Soul also goes along and would be in that same body, in the heart area, the new body. And so that is the cause of growth. The soul in the body causes growth. As we well know, we have our experience that if somebody dies, whatever age that they're at, if they were 20 and then the soul left the body, that body is not going to look later on like a 21-year-old or 25-year-old or 30-year-old, as we have experience of. The body does not grow. So it is, in fact, the soul that causes the growth. But the super soul is also there, and that super soul is an expansion of the Lord. When the Lord expands, it does not mean that he's lost some of his capability. Some of the things he may do are different. In fact, the Lord expands in different ways for different activities. That is the reason for his expansion. And since the Lord is unlimited, he does so many different things in many different places, sometimes all going on at once. So for the super soul, what does he do? He's in the body. There's 2 ways in which super souls here. He's in the body, and he allows the activities that that person wants to do. Without his sanction, the super soul sanction, we can't do anything. The Lord allows things to happen. That's why we say cause of all causes. It's through him that things happen. Now, the super soul, we've heard about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the analogy is given comparing the Lord, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, to the Paramatma. It does not mean the Paramatma has lost some capabilities because Krishna is the original. All of the abilities are there, but he's doing a particular activity. He is allowing the soul to be able to enjoy or suffer in the material world as they want. That is the job when the super soul is in the body of a person, along with the soul who is the real person. The rest of it is all temporary, and that's physical body. When the person ages or they die or they get sick and they die, or unfortunately somebody ends their life, then of course another body is needed. So that's why it says there is no difference between them. Now we know, for one, that Krishna enjoys pastimes with the cowherd girlfriends of his, the gopis who called in Vrindavan. Now, does the super soul do that? The answer is no. the Paramatma. Can the super soul do that? Now, that's a different question. Does it have the capability? Well, that is the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord has all capabilities. So by his own will, he chooses to do certain things in different places. In order to control all of activities in all of the material world as well as the spiritual world. So we take the case of Narayan. Narayan is the head of each one of the Vaikuntha planets, the planets in the spiritual world. Narayan's wife is Lakshmi. The gopis are different. The gopis are like cowherd girls who are girlfriends. We know about some of the pastimes involving the gopis, especially the rasa dance. We do not hear of Narayan in the scriptures doing a rasa dance. Does that mean that Narayan is less than Krishna? No. It's activities, different activities. So the Lord is one. Another example given is that the original candle, if you can imagine candles, you light them up, the first candle, that is the original candle. And imagine lighting the rest of the candles, but they're all of the same size. So as far as ability, that doesn't change because the candles will give the same type of power of light. But there may be different colors here and there because of what it's supposed to, as a person's plan, supposed to have the candle do. Or maybe some kind of filter may be in front of it, therefore the light coming out may be blue, if it's a blue filter. It may be green, if it's a green filter. So there are differences like that in the activity. But the original candle is the one that was lit first. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now, the Personality of Godhead manifests himself, Srila Prabhupada is saying, in the Prabhava, Vaibhava, empowered incarnations, partial incarnations, childhood, and boyhood. And we've already talked about number 5 and number 6, childhood and boyhood. We've explained very simply. Right now, we're in the Kartik month. In the Kartik month, we're going through the pastime of Krishna as a child. Now, when we talk about boyhood, then we're talking about adolescence, because normally we call that, people who are teenagers, we call them, young men, boys. So boyhood, childhood, and boyhood. Krishna prefers to get to that point. Because in the spiritual world, of course, there's no need for old age. Old age is described basically about the physical body. Remember one time there was a lady that came to the temple, and he's not a devotee. She's not a devotee. She came by invitation of another friend, who was also not a devotee, but used to come around a little bit. So I had an opportunity to talk to her. And she was immediately critical because these people who are religionists, they don't know God, as they call God the Father, what he looks like. We know about Krishna. And she saw a picture of Krishna. And he says, this is God. You call this God? This is a picture, artwork of God? How come God looks young? Your God looks young? Because you see, in so many religions, they say God is the original person. He is the oldest. And they ascribe old age to an old physical body. And therefore, as Bhakti Swami also said, he saw that some religionists have tried to depict God as an old man with the gray, white beard, and the hair is all gray. So people imagine like that. The Lord never really showed himself. in the religionists. They don't see himself, especially Christian religion. Therefore, when she asked me, then I said, what happens to old people? Later on in life, what happens to old people? But not later in life, soon after, comparatively. She said, yeah, old age is associated with death. People die. I said, does God die? She said, no. Then I said, why does she have to be old then? Why does he have to be old if he's not going to die? And that was the only way she kind of began to accept that the Lord could possibly look young, because people are used to taking the old age to, oh, then if he's the original, he's beyond, everybody came from him or through him, all things came through him. So he was there first. Therefore, time has been there with him all this time, so he must look old. He doesn't. He's a spiritual body. The spiritual body is not based on time. The material body is based on time. And time, after a while, is annihilating the different things that are material. So the personality of Godhead manifests himself in Pravava, Vaibhava, empowered incarnations and partial incarnations, childhood and boyhood. So he performs the pastime, Srila Prabhupada is saying, in these 6 different forms. In these 6 features, there are unlimited divisions of the personality of Godhead's form. In these 6 features, there are unlimited divisions of the Lord's form. So let's look specifically at a few places. The Lord Krishna expands. The first plenary expansion is Balaram. Balaram equals Krishna in ability. The only thing that differs is especially his color, whitish color. Krishna is bluish black. Balaram expands to what's called the 4 incarnations, Chaturvyuha. And those are Vasudev, Anirudh, Sankarshan, and Pradyumna, or Vasudev, Pradyumna, Anirudh, Sankarshan. That first set of incarnations, this is explained, we'll get to Chaitanya Charitamrita later on, chapter 20, which more explanations are given by Lord Chaitanya about the Lord's incarnations. These 4 expand to Narayan, the head of each Vaikuntha planet. Narayan expands to a second set of 4, that is the Vasudev, the Anuruddha, Sankarshan, and Pradyumna. And from that Sankarshan, of the second set, now we go into the Vishnu Tattva, the Vishnu form, beginning from Mahavishnu, the one whose pores and whose breathing the universes, the material universes, come into existence. When he breathes out of his pores, then come these universes. And when he breathes in, then the end of the universes are up and they go back into the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with all of the entities that are in the material world. They are put in an unconscious state until the Lord breathes out again. Then they come out with the universes and continue whatever that they want to enjoy in the material world. So, Karnodakshaya Vishnu or Mahavishnu, he expands to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the one through whom Lord Brahma, the first engineer who gives variety to each universe, occurs. Variety means the planets and the things that are inside each planets and some of the and other activities, including even having persons come to being and other things. There are 8,400,000 different types of species. All of that is through Lord Brahma. 8,400,000. This is kind of for our lives. This is mind blowing, right? 8,400,000 types of bodies that the souls can inhabit or can dwell in the material world. So from there, the Lord is with each one soul in the body as Shirodakshai Vishnu. So Gavadakshai Vishnu now expands to Shirodakshai Vishnu. So there's expansions and then expansions from that expansions, and then there are more expansions from that expansion also. It goes on and on and on and on. The same Shirodakshai Vishnu who is responsible expanding himself into every single atom he's there, and also in the heart of everyone. The same Shirodakshai Vishnu expands to the different types of Lila avatars. Burma and Shringa, each one of them has a pastime involved in it. Kurma, the Lord came as a tortoise, and his pastime involving the churning of the milk ocean. There was a mountain that was used by both the demons and the demigods, and Vasuki as the snake that was used in churning. And the idea of churning the mountain, churning the milk ocean with the mountain, was to get nectar, which gives immortality. So demigods were after it, and so were the demons. But they could not take this, the job of just doing back and forth, churning was difficult for them with the mountain, even though all the demigods is much, much stronger than we are. There's so much ability they have. So the Lord incarnated as the tortoise and got underneath the mountain. And so now there was a pivot that they could. These demigods and the demons could now rotate back and forth the mountain in order to churn, to have what they wanted, that nectar. So that's a little pastime involved in this. And that's from Shirodakshai Vishnu. And the Shirodakshai Vishnu is also the Paramatma in our hearts. Now, a little bit that relates to us, especially this is going to be for devotees who've been around for a while. They know when we get up in the morning and we take a shower, we put clay, which is from India, from the sacred rivers. We call it tilak, and we put it on our bodies. I have one now on my forehead. And as we're chanting some mantras too. Now those mantras relate to some of the expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and it can be very, 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 very detailed. I'm trying to get as simply as I could make it in this, because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 20, if you have time, you can read all of those. It starts with a very nice pastime of how Sanatana Goswami, who's a resident of the spiritual world, but came in Lord Chaitanya's time, was imprisoned, and how he escaped, and how from the prison, what he did, what he said, how he traveled, and then he finally came to where Lord Chaitanya was, Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so it starts with that. The first about 180 texts from Adi Lila, chapter 20, is about that travel of Lord Sanatana Goswami getting away. Now he's with Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is very pleased to see him. And then he begins to explain things to him, and the things he explained include the features of the Lord. So there are Prabhava, there are Vaibhava, there are Vilas, there are Prakash, expansions. They're all different types of expansions. Now, the simpler one involves just, the simpler situation involves just two, the Prakash and the Vilas. The Prakash expansions are when the Lord expands himself based on a pastime that he wants to perform. For example, when he dances with the gopis, Krishna, in his form, original form, can expand himself to as many gopis as there are. And sometimes millions of gopis dance the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He will expand himself so that each gopi knows that Krishna is with her only and dancing with her. And that form is a Prakash form because he looks exactly identical in form as the original. Now, the Vilas form is when he's expanded himself, all the capabilities are there, but the form is different. In the case of Balaram, we talked about his colors, whitish, Krishna is blue, black. So that is, so you can put Balaram then in the Vilas form. The Vishnu forms, Krishna has 2 arms, the Vishnu forms have 4 arms. So their form are different. They are also put in the Vilas form. When Krishna is in Dwarka with his queens, 16,108 queens, he expands himself to be with each queen in one palace per queen. That's the way it was in Dwarka. He expands himself as the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, as many queens as there are. That is a Prakash form because he looks just like regular Krishna. They all see him that way. So that's the difference between the Prakash and the Vilas. The Prakash is expansion, but looking exactly like Krishna, the original form. And Vilas expansions, there are differences, sometimes in color, sometimes in the actual size. In fact, if you say Shingadev, and I talked about Kurma, the third is, so they're all Vilas forms. Now, the final thing we want to talk about, because I'm looking at the time now, is, and that's related to situations. Now I'm actually fast forwarding to Madhya Lila, chapter 20, and I had talked about the forms, the Vasudev, the Anuruddha, and then Sankashan and Pradumya. Now, each one of these expands into 3 forms. Each one of these expands into 3 forms. So you have 4 of them, Vasudev, Anuruddha, Sankashan, and Pradumya. And if each expands to 3, then it's not too difficult to do the multiplication. How many of these expansions are there? 4 times 3. That would be 12. How many months do we have? 12. So each one of them like rules each month. Each one of them rules each month. The Vasudeva expansions are Keshav, Narayan, and Madhava. Keshav, Narayan, and Madhava. The Sankashan expansions are Govinda, Vishnu, and Madhusudan. The Pradumya expansions are Trivikram, Vamana, and Sridhar. So this is some of them. So I think I'm missing one. But anyway, I'm looking at the time too because I have to kind of end it soon. But the 4th one also expands. And there are 12 predominating deities then for the 12 months. So I talked about Keshava and Narayan. And so Keshava, each deity is for one particular month. And the months are also given the Sanskrit names. So you have to excuse me to go to this. Keshava is the predominant deity of the month, which occurs from middle of November to December. It's called Agrahayan. Narayan is the predominant deity from the month from middle of December to January. It's called Pausa. And then the month of Magat, which is between January and February, is Madhava. And then the month of Falgun, February and March, the presiding deity, the predominating deity is Govinda. And Lord Vishnu is that for the month between March and April, Chaitra. And Madhusudan is from the month between April and May, mid-April to mid-May. It's called Vaishaka. And the month May to June is called Jyeshta, and the predominant deity is Trivikram. And then in Asadha, June to July, the deity is Vamana. And the month is called Shravan, July to August. The deity is Shrida. And then in Bhadra, that month, August to September, the deity is Rishikesh. And then Ashwina, September to October, the predominant deity is Padmanav. And then I deliberately left that last one, which is also the end, October to November. That presiding deity is Damodar, and that is the Kartik. The Kartik month is where we're in now, October to November. The final explanation I'd like to give before I open up for questions is, you heard me talk about September to October, October to November, and so on. Why? Why not beginning of September for the whole month? Well, it's not set up like that. It's set up based on the full moon. And from the full moon, which happens, to look at the calendar, you will see in the middle of the month, and then there's new moon. It happens 15 days later, or no moon. New moon is starting over. So by the time the full moon is going to the other full moon, the next time, it's another 15 days. So full moon to no moon, 15 days. The new moon starts to the full moon again, another 15 days. That's 30. And that is the days of the month, 30 days. It just so happens that the full moon is usually in the second week of the month. And that's why, since we start from there, and then we go, all right, so it's September, middle of September to middle of October, it's 1 month, it's called Ashwin month, and the deity is Pavanav. Now, those who put tilak on the 12 parts of the body, they also call these same names. Keshav. So when we devotees put tilak on our forehead, the forehead, we have to remember Lord Keshav. Then we do the lower abdomen, Narayan. And then the chest, Madhav. And the neck, in the hollow of the neck, Govinda. And then we mark in the right side of the belly, we remember Lord Vishnu. So we say Om Vishnave Namaha. And Madhusudan, in the left, the side, the right arm, and then the right shoulder, Trivikram, and then Vaman, the left side of the belly, and then Shrida is the left arm, and Rishikesh is the left shoulder, and Pavanav and the Damodar should be remembered when we are marking the back. Now, I apologize, but I got too technical towards the end, but the texts themselves tell you that the Lord has innumerable forms, and literally, I've only mentioned just 12 of them. And 12 compared to innumerable, we haven't said much at all. But that's the Lord. Ananta says she has so many mouths, can't describe the pastimes of the Lord, much less even the names. How about us, who have only one mouth and only so much energy? So yeah, it is quite complicated for us, for our minds. But when you go back to the spiritual world, things will become quite clear. So we'll leave it at that. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for explaining it. And as you were speaking, I'm realizing more and more and more and more that Chaitanya Charitamrita is definitely for postgraduate. It is too technical. Like my brain works when I have to write it out and put it on a poster and see it, because I'm such a visual learner. So it gets so overwhelming, so yeah, I have to really
that's
go
a good
back
point.
and
I
talk
thought
it
about
out.
that. Yeah, I thought about that. But the reason I decided to bring it in is that, if you start using tilak and you mark the 12 places in the tilak, then you'd be able to relate to these same incarnations. That's one. And second, because it's being recorded, if you need to hear it again, you certainly can hear those and the connections. So then I know that kind of take it all in verbally, it's going to be difficult, but since the recording
My
is
head
there,
is, I definitely have to go back and chalk it out like a kindergarten student. Definitely, for sure.
I
It was,
apologize if it kind of overwhelmed
no, it's
some people,
fine,
but
but it
sometimes
is, but this will inspire us to go back, and find some time and go back and really break it down so that it's easy, at least for me, to digest it, because it's definitely, I think I remember Balabhadra Prabhu giving a class on this topic a few weeks ago. And he said that it's so innumerable that it's so difficult for a common conditioned mind to understand and
take it all
digest
in.
it.
Yeah.
He said, because our minds are so limited, like so limited, and and sometimes as you were speaking, I was thinking, this is definitely postgraduate, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to the postgraduate things that we do in the university. This is like way way, like so high level, really amazing. And it really takes one to really understand the supremacy of the Lord.
So let me now you talked about, it's quite true, but before ending your comment, you talked about postgraduate study in the universities. Looking at this, it's far more complicated than the postgraduate studies in the universities. It's actually but you can live with it. People graduate from postgraduate studies and with a master's and PhD, they're able to do that. And even
that's what I thought.
They take a very small part of that subject and expand a little more into it.
That's what I meant. That's exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, please do jump right in, and you can share. And just a quick reminder while devotees are thinking that we will be continuing our Bhagavad Gita class tonight. Srila Prabhupada says, where we will hear a lecture from Srila Prabhupada. And I believe now we are in chapter 1, and we're going back to the beginning. But this time we are hearing transcription and audio of Srila Prabhupada's lecture. Chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, I think, is where we are on today. So please do join us at 6 o'clock this evening to hear from Srila Prabhupada's lecture called Srila Prabhupada Says. We kind of changed it up a little bit because we want to really go deeper into each verse and hear what the founder Acharya has to instruct us on. So just a quick reminder on that. And any questions, any comments, any, reflection? Mine is definitely, go back and really study this and really break it down.
Yeah, I could, anyway, you ask any questions. So if anyone wants to have a question, they definitely can ask that now. Otherwise, I want to do a quick summary.
That would help. A quick summary, the whole thing would definitely help.
Yeah. So the Lord has several expansions. They are all, the Lord is spiritual. He's not material. So when you look at expansions, when you hear expansions, don't think that because the Lord is not looking like this, and therefore some capability has gone up. No, all the capabilities are there. It's just that he does different expansions for different purposes. That's the first thing. Then we spend some time explaining that the Lord, by his own sweet will, can come into a particular universe in a particular planet of his choice and perform his pastimes. He may come as a baby, but he likes to grow up to 16 years old, the full youth, and we compared it to the material. We know 16-year-old teenager has, pretty much all the strength to use, but Krishna likes to be at that point. So that's another thing about him. So that's why his childhood and boyhood are there. And then we talked about different expansions. The 6 expansions, we didn't get into all of them. The partial incarnations we talked about. We talked about when he expands to his full form, Krishna, looking like Krishna, many Krishnas. That's called a Prakash form. And then when he expands, when he looks different, like the half man, half lion, or 4-handed form, that's called the Vilas, Prakash and Vilas. Prakash is when he looks just like Krishna with so many Krishnas. for the gopis or for the queens, like that. And then we finally came through a little bit of discussion to the 12 months of the year and the predominating deity for each one of them. But these are all expansions. That's when we got a little more technical. And I put that in because those who put the 12 markings of tilak on their body, they chant these mantras, Keshava, Narayan, Mahadeva, Govinda, Vishnave, and Vishnu, and so on. Madhusudan, Tribhikam, and Vaman. So all of those, some people know about it. So for the benefit of those who are initiated and put those on their bodies, that they are those same expansions of Krishna that we mentioned, those are connected with the months of the year, the 12 months of the year, predominating deity for each month. And then we describe the months, but then the months are not related to us. It's like 1 month. I was talking about 2 months, middle of one to another. And the reason is because it's taken by when the full moon, that's called the Falgun, the full moon. And the full moon goes from middle of a month. And by the time the next full moon comes out, it's the middle of the next month. And that's why we talk about October to this, November, like we're in now, the month of Kartik, in November to December, and in December. It's all based on the moon. And the moon doesn't start on the first of the month being full moon. It starts in the middle of the month being full moon. So that's why we describe it like that. Hare Krishna.
Let me see. Bhakta Bread said, Hi Krishna Prabhuji, accept my obeisances of August Prabhupada. Thank you for the amazing class. So much information, and I will definitely be listening again. Yes, me too, Bhakta Bread, for sure. You and me together. I said, I very much enjoyed your point on how we cannot think of our parampara separate from Krishna. But I understand the energy of Krishna and the agency to decide and confide on how to deal with this external energy in a Krishna consciousness if we so choose. Life is growth, and we can't set Krishna, Parampara, and Guru separate in any way if we do wish to grow. Very nice.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Guru, but Guru is representative of Krishna. And
Very
the Guru
nice.
breaks down things. And Guru is already heavy with knowledge from Krishna, and breaks down things in such a way that we would be excited about Krishna consciousness, enthused and determined to stay with Krishna consciousness, even through challenges in the material world. That's the Guru's function.
That was a
That's
nice
part of his
realization.
function. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, Dr. Brett. Very nice realization. Thank you so much. If there are no questions and comments, we thank you all for joining us and really look forward to seeing all of you this evening at 6 o'clock when we hear from Srila Prabhupada on Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 verse 6. Until then, Vanchakrapati Vyascha Kripasindhavevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day.
Jai.
Hare Krishna Swana Guranga.
Hare Krishna. Jai.